Dolls are supposed to comfort children, but some carry more than stitches, porcelain, or paint. Some carry voices, memories, and things no one asked to invite into their home. Tonight, you'll hear 3 terrifying stories of haunted dolls, objects that refuse to stay silent, that refuse to stay still. Turn off the lights and listen closely. Story 1, Hairline Smile. I do estate cleanouts for a living. Most houses blur together. Boxes of photos, cracked teacups, a smell like damp cardboard. This one was different because of the nursery. No kids had lived there in decades, but the room was staged like time had stopped. Yellowed wallpaper with tiny lambs, a faded rocking horse, and on a high shelf, a porcelain doll in a lace dress, the color of old teeth. She had glossy glass eyes and a hairline crack that curved from the corner of her mouth toward her cheek. The smile. The family didn't want anything. Trash it all, they said. I set the doll aside anyway. Curiosity, I guess, and finished the job. When I locked up for the night, I could still smell the nursery baby powder and something sweeter, like dried lavender. The scent followed me into the truck. I put the doll on my kitchen table to photograph for a reseller group. Every shot came out soft, like the focus slipped a little. The only crisp detail was the crack curving up her cheek. When I carefully zoomed in closer, I distinctly realized that the subtle curve consistently ended a full millimeter higher in every single picture, as if the faint crack and the gentle smile were both slowly and gradually lifting upwards. That night, the house clicked and settled like always. Sometime after 2, the floorboards outside my bedroom gave a long, deliberate creak. My cat raised its head and stared at the door. I got up, flipped on the hall light, and felt that wrongness. You can taste metallic cold. On the table, the doll was facing the chair I usually sit in, head tilted, as if listening. I told myself I must have nudged her earlier. I turned her toward the window, went back to bed, and slept badly. In the morning, the kitchen smelled strongly of lavender. The doll was turned back to the chair. Her cracked smile had crept higher again, just enough to notice, just enough to deny. I took another photo and compared it to last night's. The difference was real. You know that prickling on the scalp? I had that full force. I decided to box her up and take her back to the dump. Before taping the top, I wrapped her in an old receiving blanket I'd found in the estate. I swear the fabric was warm, like it had been held. Somewhere in the house, a floorboard popped. Then another, like soft footsteps, retreating down the hall. On the drive, the cab filled with the scent of powder and lavender, so thick it felt humid. When I braked at a light, something slid inside the box. Just a soft shift of weight. The noise made me look into the rearview mirror. All I could see was the box behind me and the tiny, pale curve of lace peeking from the cardboard seam. I carried it to the donation pile at the transfer station. As I set it down, the lid bowed slightly from inside, like a palm pressing up, then relaxed. I walked away faster than I wanted to admit. That night I woke to the sound of a rocker moving somewhere in the dark. A slow squeak forward, a slower squeak back. I turned on the lamp. My cat wasn't on the bed. She was sitting in the doorway, staring down the hall toward the kitchen. Fur puffed. The lavender smell rolled in again, impossibly strong, like someone had just passed. The rocker sound stopped. I didn't sleep. At dawn, I drove back to the dump to prove to myself it was over. The donation area had been sorted. The clerk said toys went first. Some lady took a box with a doll and a blanket around closing yesterday. He smiled. Cute thing. Little crack on her face like she's smiling. When I got home, there was a faint indent on the cushion of my kitchen chair, as if someone small had been sitting there all night, listening. The lavender scent had finally faded. The chair faced the window. The window faced the street. I didn't look too long. Story 2, lot number 42. I bought a trunk at a small town auction, mostly because no one else bid on it. It was heavy cedar lined with iron straps and the number 42 chalked on the side. Inside, beneath moth-eaten quilts and a stiff christening gown, was a marionette in a canvas bag. Wood body, painted face, slotted mouth, glass eyes that were too wet-looking for their age. The strings were the color of old twine entangled into a nervous nest. The auctioneer chuckled when I asked where it came from. House on Mill Creek Road, he said, belonged to a man who used to perform at church picnics. The kids hated that doll. He said it fondly, like it was part of town lore. At home, I carefully propped the peculiar marionette on a prominent bookshelf, mostly as a lighthearted, amusing joke. When I passed it, the eyes appeared to catch light in ways nothing else in the room did, as if there was a candle inside the head. That night, while I answered emails, a tapping started somewhere above me, not the scuttle of an animal. This was measured tap, 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 tap. I went upstairs. The attic door was closed, but the chain hung at an angle like it had been disturbed. The tapping stopped. Around 2 a.m., I woke to a soft rasp like string sliding over wood. In the dark, something brushed my ankle, and I flinched, kicking free from the sheet. There was nothing on the bed. The rasp came again, closer to the floor, and I heard the tiniest click, like a wooden joint settling. The marionette was not on the shelf. I found it in the hallway, slumped against the baseboard with its legs. The strings were stretched taut across the floor toward my bedroom threshold, as if something on the other side had pulled them through, then let go when I turned on the light. The knots on the crossbar were different, tighter, rearranged. I told myself I must have jostled the shelf earlier, that it slid. I told myself a lot of things. I put it back and shut my door. In the morning, I photographed the trunk for a listing. In one particular frame, the marionette's head was noticeably turned much more sharply and distinctly than I vividly remembered it to be, creating a truly unsettling visual effect. In the next, its mouth was a fraction wider. I deleted both and took new ones, hands shaking hard enough to blur the image. I decided to move it back into the trunk. As I lifted the canvas bag, something small and brittle fell out. A folded index card with a child's block letters. No more. The pencil had pressed so hard it left grooves. On the back, in fainter cursive, "Practice at home, not at church." Frighten them. That night, I set a cheap audio recorder in the living room and went to bed. At 3:07, the house ticked and popped like always. And then the recording captured a sound I cannot comfortably describe. A dry click of wood. A jerk of string. And underneath, a breathy syllable that could have been no. Or could have been the wind. Or could have been the mouth of a painted thing opening for the first time in years. I drove the trunk back to Mill Creek Road the next morning, figuring I'd leave it at the curb with a free sign. There was nothing to leave it in front of. The house had burned. Long ago, only the foundation remained a rectangle of scorched brick with saplings growing through. I put the trunk on the concrete and set the marionette inside the canvas bag, the way I'd found it. When I turned to go, I felt a tug at my wrist. My watch band had caught a loop of string, I swear, hadn't been there a second earlier. I tore free and didn't look back. That night, the tapping didn't return. I slept badly, but I slept. In the morning, a pale strand of twine lay under the bookshelf where the doll had been, like a thread leading nowhere. I vacuumed it up, but I'm still listening for that careful tapping, spelling out something simple I don't want to understand.
Story 3. Monitor. We bought our first house in February. The kind of place with too many small rooms and an attic no one had opened in years. The nursery was oddly intact, curtains with faded balloons. A wooden mobile, and in the back of the closet, a shoebox with an old analog baby monitor and a cloth doll with button eyes. The monitor still hissed when I plugged it in. The doll smelled faintly of dust and lemon oil, like it had absorbed the scent of whatever furniture polish someone used forever ago. My wife said the doll was charmingly creepy, which is a nice way to say, don't put that near the bed. I set the monitor on the dresser as a novelty and left the receiver on in the kitchen while we clean. White noise filled the room, that soft seashell roar of static. Every now and then, the needle would twitch like it caught a breath. That night, a whispering woke me up. Not words, just a mouth close to a microphone. I didn't think we'd left the receiver on, but the kitchen was glowing with its tiny red light. The sound was steady, like the monitor was picking up the ocean. I clicked the volume down, the whispering kept going, and then rose into a shape, one syllable formed and unformed. Ma, 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 stretched and broken, like someone practicing how to say it. I went to the nursery. The transmitter's green light was on, even though it wasn't plugged in. The cloth doll had been left sitting in the rocker, but the rocker was facing the crib now, and the doll's head rested on the rail, like it was listening for breath. I picked it up and felt the weird warmth of fabric that has been under a lamp. But there was no lamp. The next day I told myself I was tired. I boxed the monitor and the doll together and put them in the attic, with the other, each deal, with later things. That night the receiver lit on its own again. The whispering returned, softer, closer, and filtered with the little pips and hiss you get when a cheap mic clips. I turned the volume knob to 0. The sound did not change. It took me a second to realize the receiver was off. The whispering wasn't coming from the little speaker at all. It was coming from upstairs, thin as breath through a vent. We went to the attic together. The box wasn't where I left it. The doll sat near the hatch, propped against an old garment bag. The monitor transmitter light winked steady as a heartbeat. I pulled the batteries out. The light stayed on for a beat longer than electronics should. Then it died. We carried the box back down and left it on the porch while we argued about what to do. The house had the feeling of a room after a serious argument. Too quiet, dust hanging. My wife said we should donate it all. I said we should burn it. We compromised with tomorrow. At 3:42, the receiver in the kitchen clicked. I sat up because every parent instinct you didn't think you had wakes up to that sound. A faint lullaby leaked through, metallic and slow, the kind of melody wound by a key. It played 4 measures. Then the tape and the sound, or whatever ghost counts for tape, caught and repeated, wronger every loop. I went downstairs. The receiver sat, inert. The sound came from the hall. The nursery door was open. The moon turned the crib bar silver. The doll lay inside the crib with its button eyes turned up and its stitched smile askew. My wife hadn't put it there. I hadn't either. The mobile stirred as if a warm hand had just passed. We took the box to the curb at dawn, with the paper taped on top. Do not take. An hour later it was gone. The paper folded neatly on the porch like a note thanking us. We changed the nursery curtains. We painted the walls. We never used the attic. Every once in a while, late at night, if the house is very still, I swear I can hear that tiny mic. Pick up a breath not made by any throat under our roof, trying a single word over and over, placing the sound in its mouth like a toy.
Some dolls are loved, some are forgotten, and some never let go. If you enjoyed these stories, there are many more to come. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.